Welcome to the Sports Resort, your home for all things sports, with your hosts G Money,
Tay,
Padre T,
and Connor. Let's get to it. Welcome back to the Sports Resort. This is your host, Gannon Cornley. I'm so glad to have you guys back with us. This is now our third episode, and we look forward to putting together another show for you. This is our third one. And to start the show, we do unfortunately have some bad news for you guys.
So like LeBron and the Hito said, Connor's missing not one, not two, but 3 episodes. Connor's got a little coronavirus scare, so this one is excusable a little bit. He's down at his lake house, nice weather, just hanging out, staying close. We hoping he takes Toby's method of quarantine and gets really good at 2K so he can stop sucking when we start our game league.
Yeah, and PSA to people who don't want to catch coronavirus like Connor, don't put money in your mouth. Tasting $5 bills is not healthy, and it will get you the virus.
Quick little public service announcement for you guys. Let's get started on the episode.
Yes, sir. Let's get to it. For our third episode, we decided we would share our favorite threes among all sports. We have kind of different varieties of that, so we'll start with Connor himself and his favorite three.
So Connor told me right before he passed to the great beyond of COVID quarantine that his favorite number threes in sports, there's 3 of them. One is the first 3 that Reggie Miller made against the Knicks. The second is the second 3 Reggie Miller made against the Knicks. And the third is Reggie Miller's rating out of 10 to most of the ladies. A 3 itself. Reggie Miller, obviously a member of the NBA all-ugly team. But Connor will vehemently deny these allegations. And that is why those are his 3 threes of sports.
Okay, my take. What's your threes?
Well, there is no real way to follow Connor's favorite threes up. But I went with my favorite 3rd overall picks in the NBA draft. Started with Michael Jordan, 1984, James Harden, 2009, and the man himself, Carmelo Anthony, in the 2003 draft. So some steals. Some teams got some pretty good draft picks at that spot. Talking about, the man, the GOAT himself, James Harden, go down as possibly the greatest scorer in NBA history, and Carmelo Anthony, who, kept the Knicks relevant for a little bit.
Or did the Knicks keep him relevant?
That's a good question, because he ain't doing nothing in Portland right now.
He on the sideline with us right now. But that's pretty interesting. And not only that, but the people who went 1 and 2 in front of most of these guys is pretty criminal when you go back and look at it. But for my favorite 3, I went with some players that I really admired growing up and or still watching. So my favorite college football player to wear number 3, Carson Palmer, Heisman Trophy winner himself, the boy. In the NFL, I went with Russell Wilson, quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. College basketball, some people don't like him. I don't care. My boy Grayson Allen, Sir Chop. As long as Doug McDermott, another Sir Chop. That's my boy. In the NBA, Dwayne Wade along with Allen Iverson. Those are some of my favorite ones. But currently playing right now is my boy Brad Beal with the Wizards. Please send him help. And in the MLB, I went with Babe Ruth, the famous Yankee ever.
D-Wade, AI, who is the more exciting number 3 on the court?
More exciting? I'd say Allen Iverson. Better player all time, Dwayne Wade. With pure excitement, somebody that I would want to watch night in and night out, Allen Iverson for sure.
Yeah, I'm following that up with Allen Iverson. I think he had a little bit more impact on the game in his time. You weren't really seeing, combo guards running the 1 and the 2. I mean, you can't beat getting your hair braided on the sideline in the middle of a game. And he gave the dude 34 points. So as a fan, I would have felt disrespected. But I know as a teammate and as an opponent, if you get your hair braided on the sideline and you just give me buckets, you got to see me in the parking lot after that.
All right, so that wraps it up for our three favorite threes into sports. We're gonna start with our weekly news, kicking off with one of the hottest topics of the week, and that is what are the Washington Redskins, or Washington blank, as they're looking to change their name, or many people have been calling for them to change their name. Nike has apparently removed all of their attire off of their websites, as well as FedEx, who actually sponsors their stadium. They're asking for them to change the name. This has been something that has kind of been in the news for quite some time, for the better part of this decade. But the owner has kind of been hell-bent on changing anything about it. And it seems like as 2020 has been moving, things are changing. And I think I can speak for all of us. I think it does definitely need to change. And what are some nicknames some names that you guys think that it should go to?
It'd be pretty poetic if they became just the Washington Whiteskins. It'd be pretty hilarious, sort of ironic. There's no way Dan Snyder will do it though, because groups of people don't like to be made fun of. And honestly, using this name Redskins is just, yeah, I guess as a kid I didn't realize how like bad it sounded. But it's really, really, really bad sounding, especially given the context behind it. They were originally the Braves when the team first started, and the owner at the time just said, I don't want to change the Native American imagery that we've got going. So he changed it to Redskins, which is a million times worse than Braves in my opinion. One name that I've seen going around is the Washington Warriors. They could still use the spear symbolism. They still have like some of the symbols with the team, so they wouldn't have to change everything. The name would just be far less offensive.
That's the name that I see them going with. Rebranding an entire organization, starting with the logo and everything, is a major task, which is why I can kind of see why Dan Snyder was hesitant to do it. You're talking about pulling thousands of merchandise off the shelves for God knows how long to get everything rebranded. You're talking press conference. But I think FedEx being the one to ask for the change and seeing how they are the biggest partner for the field and for the stadium, I think that was just inevitable for it to happen. With Nike taking the merchandise off their website, I think that was a major power play and showing that it's finally time to get this changed.
Absolutely. It's sad that it's come to this, but if there's one thing that we know, money talks. Money talks. It's sad that that's what has to drive everything. Just change the name out of the goodness of your heart because it's a racist name. You're literally talking about the color of somebody's skin and putting a mascot or a man's face on your helmets and wearing it around. Like, that's absolutely disrespectful. And the only thing that can kind of get you to hear people's cry out for this is for your biggest sponsors to basically pull all of your stuff. It's sad that that's what it's come to, but that's what drives a lot of things in this country, and sports is one of them. And I would be completely fine with them changing it to the Warriors. And honestly, I have a kind of a list in front of me. I think the Washington Warriors would be decent. The Red Hawks, I've heard a little bit on Twitter. Something that doesn't have anything to really do with the Indians per se. The Wolfpack, Washington Wolfpack, I kind of like that one. Red Tails. And then I thought this one was pretty funny. If anybody has seen the movie, The Replacements, with the Washington Sentinels, they took it all the way. My boy Keanu Reeves can bring them back. That's probably the last time Washington's ever had a championship, so you might as well go with something. I think they need to change it as soon as they can. And that's what really has been bothering me about this, is that you've had ample amount of time to change it, and you never really had to completely start over. Like, there are teams like Florida State, they're the Seminoles, right? So like they are honoring a tribe that goes back to Native Americans. you can do here in Kansas City. We're the Chiefs, something that kind of pays homage to them. They could just, if you wanted to keep that type of mascot per se, we're talking about people, but that type of mascot, you still can do that, but be honorable to those people, not describing them by the color of their skin. And it's really saddening that this is what it's come to. But I'm glad it's time, and I can't wait to hear what the new name is. And real quick question for you guys: what do you think about the Cleveland Indians? As they're literally called the Indians. What do you think about their name?
The Indians were originally the Cleveland Spiders, which was way cooler. And I probably would hate them a lot less as a Royals fan if they were the Spiders. The rebrand would probably be pretty interesting. You can do a lot with that. Personally, I think they should change it. The Cleveland Steamers, I would call them. They'd have a train as the logo. They'd look like the Purdue Boilermakers. You can keep the colors the same. But yeah, Cleveland Steamers, I think that would be a fun team name. Pretty much all of the AL Central teams besides the Royals in terms of how much I like them. And I would get some Steamers gear. Have Cleveland Steamers right across my chest come playoff time.
I would not be surprised to see the Washington team go ahead and steal the XFL team. You've already got the market. You've already got design. You've already got color scheme. You've already got everything set in place.
You have a bad quarterback from Ohio State already, so no need to change that.
I mean,
Okay.
going on with that, yeah. But it wouldn't be a shock to see them do that, especially with the XFL going bankrupt and not being anymore. They own the rights to the name, but they'd sell that for pennies on the dollar just to get some kind of income to hopefully get that league up and running again.
Yeah, and that team that he's referring to is the DC Defenders. So could see the Washington Defenders. That would be an interesting point there.
And moving to our next topic, just like Connor, we've got some more holdouts for the NBA. Victor Oladipo, loved Pacer, especially by Connor, sitting out. But Connor understand this reason, him coming back from a gruesome quad injury that took him out all of last season and made him miss majority of what happened to be a shortened season. Gordon Hayward, who is expecting another baby, potentially leaving the bubble once he gets down there, and several assistant coaches who are now either testing positive or have people around them that are testing positive are now, for lack of a better word, being forced to sit at home, which, I mean, I don't really see much of a problem with. So how do you guys feel about this topic?
I'm quite concerned for Victor Oladipo. No, he was already injured. He played 13 games, scored about 14 points per game. Not obviously nothing that we've been accustomed to from him, at least not in the last couple of seasons. So I think really that's probably a good thing for him. Get rested, get healthy, and come back stronger for Connor Spacers next year because they ain't winning nothing no way this year. So Victor Oladipo I'm okay with. Gordon Hayward, I mean, I'm perfectly fine with it. I would want to be there for the birth of my child as well. That's going to be interesting to see how that's going to play out. Right now, the NBA, they have built-in protocols for approved absences. Basically, if you have to leave pretty much the Orlando bubble at any point in time, you have to quarantine mandatory for about 4 days as long as you test negative each day that you come back. That's a lot of tests. So I don't know exactly how that would look, but I understand him wanting to leave if indeed his child is being born. I'm concerned about the assistants. This is just the start. Only 2 so far. Lyle Hollins of the Lakers and Jeff B. Zillick from the Pelicans choosing to sit out. July 30th is around the corner, but there's still quite a bit of time. And then we even have a commentator, TNT's own Marv Alfred, one of the best in the business. He's decided to stay at home. I believe he's 79 years old now. He said that it's just not worth it for him. He'll love to be back next season, but Kevin Harlan's going to step into his place. But it's kind of dangerous right now, and it's a long ways away to July 30th based on how many guys each day feels like it's coming out and saying that they're not gonna be participating in that. So I'm pretty concerned.
I think it's with everyone watching Florida. For some reason, Florida expected to get all of the sports, also got all of the vacationers. Think about it, numerous people, once the travel ban was lifted, went directly to Florida. So I would be interested to see, with possibly 20 days before they're supposed to go down, if the NBA doesn't come up with another plan. I could see them trying to get everything moved to either Vegas or New York City, because you're not stopping the tourists from going to Florida. Yeah, they may not be able to go to the games, but if you get a bunch of fans down there who are willing to risk the travel ban, they'll go sit at a bar all day and watch the games. So it's Florida's a hotbed. I understand why players, especially like the older commentator, you're 79. That's unfortunately prime COVID age. So definitely understand him sitting out, because he would be one of the people interacting with the players basically the most out of everybody. He'd be the one directly right by them, basically trading sweat with them for the most part. So it'll be interesting, but I definitely think the NBA should look at some options, possibly sending teams to Vegas or playing in New York, because you're not really hearing much from there. But Florida has a lot of cases every day.
The Vegas option is really interesting. Every year they get the guys that go down for Summer League in Vegas. In Vegas, you can have the courts set up. They're playing it at a hotel anyway in Orlando. You could easily set up courts in these Vegas hotels. These are massive places. You can, I'm sure any hotel would take them. They'd say, we're not allowing anybody else in. The NBA players are staying here until their season's over. You just have like an NBA hotel in Vegas. That'd be so much fun. That would be like when we went on our AAU tournaments. We all hung out with all the other teams in those hotels, but we like didn't know how to act. These guys will know how to act. They can hang out all day, COVID free, hopefully, if they've all been tested beforehand. Yeah, you just hope that with as many guys are going to come forward and say that they're holding out, you just hope they can get a season in with players that you want to watch, because a lot of guys won't take this time off. A lot of those like role players, the 10th, 11th, 12th guys on the bench who say, okay, if everybody's leaving, this is my shot to play national TV and all that. You wouldn't want to see a playoff decided by Alex Caruso going up against Ivica Zubac or something like that. Like, we want to see the best of the best, and whatever they have to do to make that happen, I think they should roll with it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be interesting how that plays out. We're early days into July. July 30th is a long ways away, so we'll have to see how that's going to play out. Sticking with the NBA, they also have now gotten approval. Yeah. The NBA, along with the NBPA, have agreed on specific messages that the players can wear while they're down there in Orlando, speaking out for social injustice. Just to highlight a few of these, a lot of them are Black Lives Matter, I Can't Breathe, Vote, Justice, Stand Up, Listen to Us, say their names, and a number of things like that, speaking out against things that are going on in our country right now. And how it's set up, my understanding is that for the first 4 days, players can wear those type of messages on the back of their jerseys. After the 4 days, they are allowed to keep those type of messages on there as long as it's accompanied with their last name. So after that first 4 days of being down there, they would just have to put their last name, but they are allowed to keep whatever message they want to say each and every night, is my understanding. So I think that's a good thing that they got settled and handled, and I kind of like all the messages on there, just a number of them, about 20 or so, but anything to add to that, guys?
I think it's going to sell jerseys. I think that this is not only a good way for them to continue with the message of equality for Black lives and really all lives, but I think it's going to make the NBA money. I think this is a really good idea, and it goes back to sort of the Kyrie conversation we had last week about why would we go down there and do this. Like, I think this will be good for the movement, good for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. The first thing I thought was the NBA is doing what they should do, giving to the players, but also know they're going to get a lot back in return. I think, just like you, this is going to sell a lot of jerseys. I think you're going to see an insane amount of jerseys pushed over that 4 day span because I feel like it'll be some kind of limited sale that the NBA does where you can get the jerseys in X amount of time and people will go crazy for them. I know I'll probably end up getting one just because you can't. One is historic times. You have a jersey with Black Lives Matter movement on it, and knowing that in 10 years you look back at that jersey and you look at everything that we went through in 2020 to one, get an NBA season, two, to get Black Lives Matter as big as it is on a national stage, and to eventually have the Lakers the quarantine champion. Don't get better than that, in my opinion.
MLB All Star Game has been announced as canceled. It will be moved to Los Angeles for hosted by the LA Dodgers in the future date in 2022. Kind of inevitable. I mean, it's kind of we need to limit as many interactions as possible, so we just need to have a season. MLB's I feel like fought the most to get a season to begin with. So just play your 60 games to get a postseason, and I'm completely fine with it. It does suck, but I'm cool with that. So with that being said, with no All-Star game, do you think that there still should be All-Stars named at the end of the regular season?
I definitely think so. Even though you aren't going to play the game, I think recognizing those guys who had stellar years by naming them an all star is still something that they can look back on with this weird 2020 season that they're going to have and say, you know what, in those 60 games, I was an all star. Because, like we've said, 60 games, anything can happen. This could be one of those guys that never sniffs another all star like chance at all. He could look back on this 60 game performance, and instead of it being a wasted season, if his team goes like 24 and whatever doesn't make the playoffs, he can say, "Yeah, I was an all star this season though." And that's something that is like hard to take away from players. They love the individual accomplishments. The event that I will miss from this is the home run derby, and without fans, it would be really interesting to watch a home run derby because you can really hear the ball come off the bat. You can really see how far the ball would travel, where it lands with a no spectator home run derby. So that would be an event that would be really cool. I guess it'd be just like watching batting practices before games, but there would be no pressure on guys at batting practices. So that's the event that I'll probably miss from this. But yeah, like Gannon said, inevitable.
So, I think they should not name All Stars following the season. Baseball, you play 182 games. Cutting it down to 60 is a very short sample size. There's a lot that can and cannot happen in 60 games. Like you said, a guy who may never snuff an All Star game ever again, he gets hot for 30 games. He's first team, second team, he's on a roster, and someone that, in the long run, through 182 games could pull it out a little bit. So I think it'll be tricky to see what they end up doing. Unlike the NBA and NFL, you don't really hear many contract incentives for the All Star game in the MLB. It usually comes down to the home run derby and the game to decide the World Series format. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle that too with no All Star game this year.
Does the trophy look the same at the end of the year if the team wins?
I think it depends on the team. I think if we get the Yankees or Dodgers or a team that's we know is consistent, I think the trophy will look the same. If the Tampa Bay Rays come out, get hot, and win 40 games and somehow start knocking powerhouse teams off, I think there's going to be a lot of MLB players and fans saying, well, it's a very short season, 60 games, anything can happen, and we got that anything.
I hear you, but really where I was going with that was you still playing for a championship, and you still should highlight those players that were on that path. So while 60 is a lot shorter than the 162 that they play, I still think that's about 37% of the league. or excuse me, 37% of the season. So not quite half, but that's still a decent amount considering how many games you play. So I think that they should have all stars. I mean, recognize them for their talents, especially everything they're going through. And we're seeing a player like David Price, who's not even playing now. Now, what if the guy who replaces him steps up and he just balls out? You know what I mean? Like we get to see something we've never seen before. I think if someone's balling, we should highlight that.
I think it'll be highlighted with the players who are going to come in and kill it that we're not usually used to seeing. I think those guys, especially if they're in a contract year, if they come out killing it, they're not going to care about the All-Star game. They're going to care about that next contract.
True.
When they come up. And, like you said, the guy replacing David Price, let's say he goes 8-0 as a starter for the regular season, wins every game in the postseason. He may not get recognized as an All-Star, but I feel like that organization would pay him very well to keep him around and know what they got. And I think that's going to be the same thing with the NBA, too. I think there's going to be a lot of role players who take this as their moment. The Nets, for example, you've got DeAndre Jordan, Kyrie, KD all sitting out. I think those guys are going to take that opportunity and just run with it.
And you do have to remember, too, about the MLB All-Star Game. It's taken halfway through the season. So a guy who's an All-Star at the halfway point in the MLB, a lot of times, due to a bad second half, won't get the same sort of contract looks that, say, a Pro Bowl NFL player will get, because his is based over the body of work over the entire season, whereas the MLB guy, you take what they did in the first half of the season, and then they could easily fall off that second half.
Okay, so with saying that, do you think they should change when the All-Star season or the All-Star game is? Because, like you just said, someone gets hot in the first half of the season, has a drastic fall off. The second half, the MLB is all one season, so why are you getting rewarded for doing well the first half, and then you suck it up for the second half, and you still reap the benefits of being named an All-Star?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think the purpose of the All-Star game during the season, during a long season like that, is to give the guys a break. So it's a week off for the players who play and travel every single day. I think that's the main reason why the All-Star game is when it is. And then the fact that once you get into September, into the later months of the season, you're competing with the NFL. You just want to get right into the postseason, play that all in a month's time instead of prolonging the season even further and further into football season when you're competing with that. And then the startup of, because if you put the All-Star break at the very end of the season, you could probably shorten it a little bit, but they give those guys a break before the postseason starts as well. So I think that's the main reason. It's just scheduling, giving guys a break. Speaking of somebody who could use a break, our friend Gannon here, huge Barcelona fan, more specifically, a Lionel Messi fan. Messi was the first soccer player he loved.
Okay.
And he affectionately refers to him as...
No. No. None of that.
With Messi's future at Barcelona on the fritz, how are you feeling?
I am absolutely disgusted. And these days, I think I'm more of just a Messi fan than a Barcelona fan. The things that... I don't know. I've never been to Spain, so I don't know exactly how it goes down. And I don't want to just go off on Spain, especially when I don't know everything about how this country is ran and the politics and all that. But one thing I do know is their media sucks. Like, it is just god awful. All they do is sit here and blame. They will blame this man for their country's turmoil. Like, their country is at odds right now over a bunch of different leadership things, and they blame the famous soccer player for things that's going on and the corruption that's going on in their country. And it all falls on Barcelona, but it falls on Messi because he's the face. And you can kind of see that it affects their play, which is why they're one of the best, if not, they're going into every season, they're pretty much top 2, top 3 teams that should win pretty much every trophy possible going into the season. Yet here of late, they have not. And you can see why. It weighs on the team. They have continuously blamed this man for the amount of coaches being fired when he does not, to my knowledge, does not have any real say in that because the board of directors have to vote on that, and Messi is not on the board of directors. He's a player. So how can a player be the reason why a coach gets fired when people above the coach have to vote on that? And he gets blamed for that, and I do not understand why. He gets blamed for when a player gets traded. He gets blamed for when a player stays on the team. This is, and I just, it blows my mind because in no other sport, in no other place do you see this. Could you imagine right now? This is for people to understand soccer. This is equivalent to how Chris Jones is going through his contract dispute right now with the Chiefs. That's like blaming Patrick Mahomes. That's like going up to Patrick Mahomes and be like, "Yeah, you're not fighting hard enough for Chris Jones to stay on the team." That's equivalent to what they're saying. Or if something's going on with like within the politics here in Kansas City, if the mayor were to do something or there's controversy, that's Patrick Mahomes' fault for not speaking up against the mayor. That's equivalent to what they're saying. And that is absolutely ridiculous because yes, he plays a part. Yes, he plays a role in that community, in that country. But for one, he's not even from that country. Let's get that straight. Second of all, he does not control the city of Barcelona. He plays soccer there. And why he's being shredded through the media, and I do not blame him for wanting to leave after his contract ends in 2021. He said that there's been reports before then that he's wanted to leave back in the past, and obviously he stayed. But I think this is a real possibility he's leaving, and I hope he does. To be completely honest with you, I love Barcelona, but I hope he does. This is ridiculous.
It sounds like Messi wants out of Spain, but the S is silent.
Okay.
That's wow. Wow. This man, bro. Toby be on another level, cuz.
I don't even know how to follow that up.
Another level.
Yeah, well, they're not very intelligent over there right now. I don't understand what's going on. They just blame him for everything, and I'm getting sick of it for him. He's talked about it. He's come on the air many times, talked to the media about how he does not control these things, and yet they blame him for it anyway. So soccer is just one of those sports where just, I mean, the superstars, they really are like in the light at all times, and they either get rewarded for things that they probably didn't have anything to do with, and they get hated on for things that they probably had nothing to do with. So I feel bad for him. I hope he leaves. I hope he comes to America. Like hopefully I feel like the MLS would treat him right. So hopefully he comes over here one day because what they're doing over there in Spain is absolutely ridiculous. And speaking of the MLS, we have some unfortunate news. One of our opening matches between FC Dallas and the Vancouver Whitecaps is going to be suspended due to 8 different players testing positive for the coronavirus, 6 of them coming from FC Dallas, and Vancouver was scheduled to be in Orlando already, but they had to reschedule their times due to having to quarantine some players. So not good when it was supposed to come on starting this Thursday. So I don't know. The MLS is back tournament. So far, that's the only match that's been postponed, but we'll have to see how that goes.
Those FC Dallas players must have been hanging out with Zeke over there spreading it in Dallas. I'm glad that all the athletes get along, though. I can make these jokes. I had it.
Okay. All right. Moving to our next topic.
Something positive.
Yeah, this is pretty positive for the HBCU community. A couple episodes ago, we were talking about a couple high-name recruits that were looking at either going to an HBCU or transferring, and they got a 5-star center who picked Howard over Howard University over UCLA, and that was just the beginning of his list, being a 5-star. He could have went to any school in the country, and that's a huge get for them. Committing to Howard over UCLA, Kentucky, Memphis, you're talking about some blue blood, historic powerhouse programs where he could have gone and unfortunately been a number in those coaches' belts. I know UCLA probably would have been one and done. Kentucky with John Calipari, he's for sure one and done, but he gets those 5 stars every year, so he's just he would have been just a number of, we got John Calipari walks this office. All right, we got 4, 5-star recruits this year. Let's let's recruit for next year because we know we're losing them all. So giving it back to his community a little bit, starting to set the trend, hopefully in the right way, where we start seeing some. I'd like to see some football players do it. It's a little easier in basketball to go somewhere for 1 year and you're there for basically 6 months. Football, when you go somewhere and you're there for 3 years, that's a little bit of a bigger commitment. Not knocking him going to HBCU at all, but I think it's going to take some football players to go there and actually go through the grind of being at HBCU and giving up those D1 privileges that you. I mean, you go to Alabama, you're training at a $20 million facility, new uniforms, new gear every week. I don't think that's going to be the life at HBCU, and it'll be interesting to see what high school prospect comes out and big enough that makes a splash to go to an HBCU.
Well, people forget HBCUs used to be pretty popular, especially in football. I mean, some of the best that we've had in the sport: Walter Payton, Jerry Rice, guys like that went to HBCUs. There's a list of them from the NBA too. Charles Oakley, Rick Mahorn, Willis Reed, Sam Jones, Earl Monroe were all HBC guys. It does seem to be a trend that's starting now. It started with Nate Tabor when we talked about him. This is Thon Maker's brother now that picked Howard. I think that for a guy like Maker, he's going to be a 1-year prospect, even at the HBCU. No matter where he was going, that was probably going to be his course of action, was go to college for 1 year, head to the NBA. His brother didn't even attend college. He went to a prep school, then went to play overseas, came to the NBA. So it was nice. This is actually really nice now to see, because since more guys are going to the professional level rather than colleges at all, to get a guy who could have easily done that, especially with his brother taking the same course of action as a lot of these going straight to pro type guys, that he chose an HBCU. I think that says a lot about, this kid who wants to go and wants to do something positive for, the black community, especially at a college like, we've seen Howard and Hampton and all them get the 16 seed and get run every year by the 1 seed. I think this is really good on all fronts, because this 1 versus 16 game now, with Howard coming in, all of a sudden that's a 5-star against, a flock of 5 stars. But it's something to watch, We're not sitting there watching Gonzaga and their all-European team just run laps around the school that has a gym no bigger than Rockhurst. Getting Maker to go there, getting big names to go there is going to be the start. And like they said about facilities, once you start winning, money starts coming in. Once money starts coming in, the university gets better, the facilities for these athletes get better. So this is a huge step, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. All it takes is one. It takes one, and what I loved from Maker is that even in his announcement quote or tweet or whatever how he announced it, he was encouraging Mikey Williams, probably one of the most famous prospects going around right now, to kind of join him on this. He said he said he wants to inspire guys like him to join him on this journey, and we all wait to see where he's gonna go. As my goodness, Mikey Williams is a dog. And so we can't wait to see where he goes. But I think this is unbelievable. I'm happy that he took the courage to do something like this and kind of be a trendsetter. Like, I do agree with Monte, with football wise, it is a little tougher, because being there for 3 years is a lot different than being there from essentially August to May, and then you're done. August to April, really. And then you're out of there, and you really don't have to go to class until February, pretty much. So it is a little different, but to counter that point, Walter Payton and Jerry Rice, pretty good company, I'd say. So, it only takes one. It only takes one. And at these HBCUs, I mean, everybody doesn't play at Alabama. Like, you can be a 5-star and go to Alabama and you don't see the field because all these other dudes are 5-stars. You at HBCU, you might be the best player in the whole conference, not just your own team. If you're coming out like a 4 or 5-star, so just something to think about. More film, more things that people can kind of tag you in and stuff like that. So I'm excited. I want to see how this goes moving forward.
And right there, you hit what I think is going to stop a lot of these kids from actually following this trend. When it comes to getting drafted, especially in the NFL and the NBA particularly, they look at who you played and how you played against them. Most people aren't going to watch Howard play until the tournament. If I'm an NBA scout, are you sending your scout to Duke? Duke versus KU, Kentucky versus UCLA, or another powerhouse game? Or are you going to send your scout to Howard versus Hampton on a Wednesday night? I think he's a big enough player and a big enough recruit that there will be eyes on him, and I think he's going to help from social media. I think social media is going to drive his excitement and this story once we get basketball season rolling back up. But again, in football, are you sending your scout to watch one player, Hampton versus Howard, or are you sending your scout to watch 10 players at Alabama versus LSU? I think it's going to come down to who can we see the most eyes on, and unfortunately, at the moment, I don't think NBA scouts are going to, spend the money to go watch one person play and only watch that one person.
And the worst thing that can happen is he goes there and he doesn't play well. Because then you've got guys that are like, well, now he doesn't get exposure. He's had a bad season. There's no way. Whereas you can have off seasons at big schools. And because you played at a big school, they'll overlook that because they have the coach reputation behind it who can vouch
Cam
for
Reddish.
you. Right, yeah. A Cam Reddish who maybe wasn't all that he was expected to be at Duke, still went top 10 in the draft. Because you got Coach K behind you. You got the Duke name behind you. You look a lot better than if you got... I was trying to think of the Norfolk State head coach's name when he beat Mizzou. I can't even remember it.
I've watched that whole game out of my memory, so I don't know either.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Kyle O'Quinn. NBA guy, HBCU. Look at that.
Who?
And we've come full circle.
Nah, I'm playing. He was a beast. He was a beast.
Going into sports that actually are happening and were almost canceled. UFC 251 this Saturday. It's supposed to be the biggest fight night of the summer. 3 title fights, and we almost had a controversy with the main event. Gilbert Burns tested positive for coronavirus. I don't know how Ezekiel Elliott keeps hanging out with all these guys and infecting them, but somehow that man finds a way.
It's all his fault.
But the UFC, in really stunning fashion, in about 24 hours, found a replacement for that fight. So that'll now be Kamaru Usman, the Nigerian Nightmare, taking on Jorge Masvidal for the welterweight title. Masvidal, known as Game Bread, which he tweeted out, means he's ready for anything at any time. So he's taking this fight on a week's notice, and he will notice Kamaru Usman holding the belt still after this fight's over. I like Masvidal a lot. He's got the fastest knockout in UFC history. Yeah, again, this is a bad segment for Gannon. Ben Askren, former Mizzou wrestler, knocked out in 5 seconds from a flying knee. It's not going to happen against Kamaru Usman. He's going to actually wrestle him. He's going to win, in my opinion. And I just feel bad for Burns because this is a guy who's worked his way up for a title shot, gets COVID. He's going to have to wait almost a full calendar year before he gets another title shot at all. So you feel for Burns, but that should be a really exciting replacement fight, especially for a guy who's taking it on 1 week's notice. There's 2 more title fights that night. One for a vacant title between Petr Yan and Jose Aldo, which is young Russian guy versus really old Brazilian who's also been knocked out in under 20 seconds.
That was
by our boy Conor McGregor.
Conair.
Creed's goat, as we like to call him.
Definitely Connor's goat.
Jose Aldo's getting this title fight coming off of 2 straight losses, which does not bode well for him, especially against a guy who's younger, who hasn't lost in a long, long time. So I think Petr Yan takes that one pretty easily. I don't know why they gave the fight to a guy who's ranked 6th in his own division, is 3-5 in his last 8 fights. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I got Petr Yan winning that one. And then the featherweight title, which will probably be the best fight of the night. It's a rematch fight between Alexander Volkanovski, the current champ, and Max Holloway. Both of these guys like to throw hands. This fight will end in a knockout, one way or the other.
I got the champ.
G's got the champ. So Volkanovski won in decision against Holloway last time. Holloway is famous for beating Jose Aldo, the other title fight, for the bantamweight title, the other guy who's been losing all the time. Holloway knocked him out in 2 straight fights. I think that Holloway, this is their first fight each since they faced each other in December of 2019. They haven't fought anybody else since then. Both of these guys know what to expect. I'm going upset. I think Max Holloway knockout, 2nd round, is my prediction. Yep, Max Holloway. I think he catches him. We've seen some great 2nd round knockouts just this year. The last fight, big fight night, Cody Garbrandt slept a Sun Tzu, who I believe was favored over Garbrandt in that fight entering. I think this will be much of the same, but that's the fight to watch. If you like to see people throw hands, you'll love it. That's it. That's all I got for that segment. I just got, recap. Yan, Holloway, Usman. Mark it down.
Usman, Volkanovski, and Yan. Jose Aldo, he's poor guy.
All right, well, I'm going with the champ in the first fight. Usman, I think he takes that easy with, I don't think it'll be easy. I think it'll be a little difficult. You usually get some time to prepare for a fighter style. Having a week to kind of study an opponent and switch up your entire training for a little bit, especially for a fight when, like I said, anything can happen. If you get hit in the head in the right spot, it's a wrap. In the featherweight title fight, I'm taking the champ, going with Alex on that one. In the vacant bantamweight title, I want to go with with Aldo's. He may pull something out the bag, shock everybody. But I'm going to pass and I'm going to go with you. Because, like you said, you get knocked out, 14 seconds, you need to start thinking about retirement.
The thing is, everybody else in these fights, they've lost. None of these guys are undefeated. They've all lost early in their careers. Most of these guys haven't lost since. Masvidal being the exception, but he's been on the come up. All these other guys lost early, bounced back in incredible fashion. Jose Aldo's on the decline. Everybody else on the way up. He's on his way out. Petr Yan, let's go.
No argument there. Moving to our Twitter Talk segment. The Patriots thought they were getting something good, and they had to go and mess it up by talking too damn much. A radio host came under fire for criticizing Cam Newton's celebrations. What do you guys think about this?
Michael Felger, before we go into Cam Newton, I think Gannon wants to talk mostly about Cam. I'm going to give you the background on this radio host, okay? He's from Wisconsin. He went to school in Boston at Boston University. And I think he's trying really, really hard to be what he thinks Bostonians are like when they see him in movies. And they're the meanest people alive. Here's just a little track record of what he's done. 2011, he accused a female sports reporter in Boston of having an affair with Red Sox catcher Jason Varitek, who is an ugly man. Hurt that poor girl's reputation and probably her self-esteem. And then, following Roy Halladay's death from plane crash, he called Roy Halladay a moron on the air. So this is a guy who's not immune to controversy, not immune to speaking his mind. So Gannon will tell you about his latest bit of work on air.
Okay, so this Felger dude is a complete and total moron, as he apparently likes to use that word. He's a moron. So he's over here talking about he's taking issue with Cam Newton now being a quarterback for the New England Patriots, and how he likes to dab and do his Superman celebrating, saying, quote, "They don't want you doing that here." And then later on, he was going back and forth with his partner, and then later on said that they don't do that here. Bill Belichick doesn't want that. Go on and take the next snap. This is funny. I don't know what sport he's been watching or what team he thinks he's been watching that plays in red, white, and blue, but they celebrate just as much as any other team, including one man who's no longer there, but he celebrated just as hard, if not harder, than anyone in the history of the sport. Okay? Let me back the mic up away before I get upset real quick. That is absolutely ridiculous. Gronkowski, I bet you this guy has not said one word about what Rob Gronkowski used to do with all his shenanigans. All fine. I don't have a problem with it. It's fun. You're an NFL player. You've been working your whole life to get to this point. You score a touchdown, yeah, I'm going to celebrate. There's nothing wrong with what Cam Newton does. From what I remember, I have not seen him get any excessive celebration penalties. Maybe he's gotten some, but I don't remember any. And if he has, it hasn't been very many, and he's usually within reason. And here's the thing. If any Patriots fans have a problem with it, why are you a fan? Because last time I checked, you celebrate after you make a good play. So if Cam Newton is over here celebrating a lot, that probably means he's running up some points for your team and scoring for you. So I don't know what he's talking about, and I actually have a video here of Bill Belichick directly stating the exact opposite of what this man is stating, and I'll play this right now for you.
There's nothing wrong. In fact, you should be excited when you make a play. Hell, look at all the work you've put into it, all the time that you've spent and practice of put into it, and to go out there in a game competitively and execute it well and make a play, you should be excited about it. And your teammates should be excited too. And you see when we're playing with energy and when we're playing with emotion and when we're not. Nice play, Ty. Can't even see one guy saying, good hit. Walk back to the huddle, and it's the God, it looks like we don't even care. We aren't good enough to play that way. I don't know that anybody is. So, Gary, you know it's a good play. Just doesn't really register with anybody else. Just look at this right here. Do you think we were ready to play against Denver last year, Monday night? It's so obvious. It's so visible. And when you can show that picture visually to your opponent, that's what intimidation is. That's the look right there, fellas. It's going to be a long night.
So this guy is a complete moron, as he likes to say. I don't know. And he actually came under a lot of fire for this. Some people would call him racist. I didn't take it that far. I didn't necessarily get he's a racist from this. But I do have a hard time believing that he would say anything like this about Jarrett Stidham. If Jarrett Stidham was in the end zone celebrating after scoring a touchdown, I don't think this guy would have any problem with it. And that's all I'm going to say on that.
Yeah, I wouldn't want my players looking like Eeyore on the sideline with a nail stuck up their ass. I want to see celebrations. As a Pats fan, the more Newton celebrates, the more I'm celebrating. The more I'm celebrating, the less I feel like I have that nail up my ass.
And the more we get texts from you in our group chat.
No kidding.
And we all love those. I want it on record. Everybody loves them.
Love's a strong word.
Yes, and that's why I'm using it right here, because it's also an accurate word for what we're describing.
I think I try not to look at it racially. I try to look at it from someone who's used to their quarterback acting a certain way. When you get used to someone, especially the leader of your team, acting a certain way for a very long time and having that consistency, I can kind of see why he's coming in and saying, all right, just get your job done. But you follow that up with, again, having a tight end who spiked the Super Bowl Lombardi trophy. You can't really say much about that celebrating. Like, yes, they won it, but I think that's the only person in NFL history to spike the Lombardi trophy.
And this guy, too, I think he looks at Bill Belichick. He says, well, he doesn't smile. That's the whole Patriots. Like, Tom Brady is, if you watch him on sidelines in games, he's a pretty animated person. You know, and nobody would tell Tom Brady to change who he is. And nobody should be telling Cam Newton to change who he is. Cam Newton, being Cam Newton, is what's got him in this position. It's why the Patriots picked him up. So let the man live, let the man play football, and let him celebrate when he does something well, because it's not hurting anybody, and it makes it more fun, in my opinion.
If you don't want to see him celebrating, then you better tell Jarrett Stidham to win the starting job. Because Jarrett Stidham's doing what he got to do, locks up the starting job as a lot of people think he's going to, even with the signing of Cam Newton. You don't have nothing to complain about. I, on the other hand, think by week 5, Cam Newton going to be out there Superman dabbing on everybody.
Cam Newton will be the New England Patriots starter week 2. I'll give it one game. One game.
Since we start with the Dolphins, Jarrett Stidham might look pretty good.
Okay, in that case, week 3.
I'm okay with this. I'm fine with either one starting. You just got to let the guys be themselves. Quit trying to police everybody. Sheesh.
Well, there's one person we know that will not be starting for a team week 1, and we know that David Njoku will not be starting for the Cleveland Browns as he requested a trade earlier last week. He is reportedly very unhappy with the team and is looking for basically any way out. There have been about 8 teams that have emerged as teams that he could be a landing spot for, and I'll list them off right now. Number 8's the Texans. I think people list the Texans for literally every trade. If any person wants to leave a team, Houston is literally in the running every single time because who knows what Bill O'Brien will do. And that is the direct reason that the list that I saw, that was the reason for it, Bill O'Brien. Along with the Carolina Panthers, the Green Bay Packers, the New England Patriots, Jacksonville Jaguars, Washington, the Cincinnati Bengals, and then the Arizona Cardinals. What do you think Njoku ends up?
The Cardinals would make a lot of sense. And Njoku's a guy who last year he didn't get to play very much because he broke his wrist. He only got to play in 4 games with his broken wrist last year. So the value for him trade-wise is a lot further down than what it was in 2018. I think the Cardinals, a team that's already won a trade this offseason in pretty hilarious fashion, could certainly use a tight end upgrade. I believe they would start Max Williams right now if the season were to start today. That's Max with 2 X's, which is never a good sign. I think Njoku to Arizona makes a lot of sense. He's an interesting prospect, too, because this was a guy who you thought had a lot of promise in 2018, but there must have been something. This wrist injury may have been bad or whatever, but they want to get rid of him quick in Cleveland, it feels like, by signing Austin Hooper and then drafting Harrison Bryant, a pass-catching tight end, in the middle rounds of the NFL draft. It's interesting that they would put that much stock into a position where you feel like this guy who showed a lot of promise is going to be coming back healthy. So I don't know what the story is with the Browns making those moves, what it says about Njoku, but I think Arizona is the most likely landing place for Njoku. How much he produces while he's there is a much bigger question.
I unfortunately think the best landing spot and the place he ends up going to is New England. I think Well, right now, your starting tight end is Matt Lacrosse, who 13 catches, 131 yards, 1 touchdown last season. And that's pretty important position to get some get something out of. I mean, those numbers, you look at some of the better tight ends in the league, like Gronk will probably do that in a game. Travis Kelce, Zach Ertz, George Kittle will probably hit those numbers
in a half.
Yeah, in a game, and he got that for your entire season. So I wouldn't be shocked to see a team like the Patriots who, they never really draft their first or second round. They're always either trading back for another year or trading somebody a first round pick for their seventh. So wouldn't be a shock to see them give that up, especially if they, predict to have a good season. I could see that with Cam throwing to Njoku.
So I like your Patriots point. They were my wild card here. So I came up with a 3-list team that I think that he probably will end up on one of these 3 teams. But New England was my wild card just because they do trades all the time. They do need a tight end, but I looked at kind of some like vacant spots. So Arizona just kind of seems like that's just a great spot. Max Williams, well, yes, he's okay for them, but I would take Njoku over him in a heartbeat. So I think that Arizona, they need a team that needs weapons for their young quarterback. Would be a great spot. I liked Cincinnati as my second team, a team that just lost Tyler Eifert to the Jaguars. Kind of have an open spot at the tight end position, and what better way to get your young quarterback, first overall draft pick, Joe Burrow, than that's still fairly young, pretty athletic tight end. And the problem is that's within the division, so I don't know how much the Browns would be wanting to trade him to the Bengals, but I think that would be a good landing spot for him. And then lastly is the Carolina Panthers, a team that, again, needs to get weapons for their new quarterback. And Greg Olsen is nowhere to be found. He's currently in Seattle now, so they need a tight end to go along with DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and those boys. So Carolina was my third team on there.
And one thing for the Houston Texans, you can't need everything. Every trade, every person, you cannot be on every recommended list. You just can't. Bill O'Brien, what you doing down there, dog?
They need everything but a quarterback, and give it a year. They're going to need that too.
A season. One season. The Texans going to be drafting somebody. They looking at whoever getting ready to redshirt the college football season, and they're going to have scouts at every single one of his games. Because they're going 0-16 after Deshaun Watson leave.
And I can't wait to see that as a Titans fan. Another person who we don't know where he might be playing is from right here in Kansas City, Chris Jones. He is highly upset with the Kansas City Chiefs right now. He has until July 15th to get a deal done. Based on his recent tweets and even mentioning Le'Veon Bell, and some of them, a player who's famous for sitting out an entire NFL season due to getting the franchise tag, which Chris Jones has signed. He's on a 1-year, $16 million franchise tag this upcoming season. He's not happy, and it's not looking good. What do you think is going to go on with Chris Jones in the end?
Chiefs aren't going to sign him to a long-term deal. I don't think. Especially, you look at guys now, they want all this money. They want to be the highest paid of their position despite not being the best at their position. Well, Chris Jones as a D tackle should not be making what Aaron Donald makes. The Chiefs can't afford to pay Chris Jones anywhere near what a guy like Aaron Donald makes. And in Chris Jones' mind, he's probably saying, well, I'm in that same ballpark. I should be getting paid around what Donald makes, somewhere in that same ballpark. And the Chiefs just don't have the money to do it, especially not if you're signing a guy who right now looks like he could go down as literally the greatest football player that's ever played. I don't see how it works out for Chris Jones staying in KC unless he decides that he's going to take less money. So I don't think they get a long-term deal done. I think they're going to slap the franchise tag on him. If he plays, he plays. If he doesn't, he doesn't. I think that it'll probably end up affecting the Chiefs a lot less than people think, personally. I think it's more important to keep the quarterback that's digging you out of holes that your defense is putting you into than to keep the guy who may be the best or second best player on your defense that's digging you into the holes in these postseason games. So priorities for the Chiefs is how I put it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Chris Jones has to read the room a little bit. He knows there is no way he is getting his money when Mahomes needs to be signed within a season. That's just poor. You gotta talk to his agent on that one. Like, if I'm wanting this money, and on a team like the Chiefs where they have a very high chance of repeating, my agent's got to sit me down a little bit and say, listen, we can get paid, or we can keep winning Super Bowls. You're a lot more marketable when we win in Super Bowls rather than being in New York, winning 2 games, but making a ton of money. Do I understand everybody wants to get paid? Yes. Just like in our last episode, when it's your time to get paid, I don't care if it's a cent more, I need to get paid. Do I agree with you that he shouldn't get paid Aaron Donald's money? Without a doubt. But Chris Jones, stats-wise, was in the top 3 for his position for the season. And, yeah, they dug us into some holes. And if I was a GM, I'm definitely prioritizing the safeties and the corners on our team. But if it's his time to get paid, can't really tell him not to chase the bag.
Here's where I am on the complete opposite side here. So you are 100% right, Toby. Get Mahomes. Like, Mahomes over everything. It is all about Mahomes. But the Chiefs, just like the Cowboys, are screwing up the Dak deal. The Chiefs could have done this deal a while ago. But here's the thing. They traded for Frank Clark and signed him to a 5-year, $104 million contract, $62 million guaranteed. That was Chris Jones's money. That money was originally going to go to Chris Jones before they traded for Frank Clark. So if I'm Chris Jones, and I am 100% of the time will be on the player's side when it's time for them to get their money. I understand why the Chiefs won't. I 100% understand it. But I am with Chris Jones on this. He's been playing on a 4-year, $6 million contract. He's been making barely $1 million a season. And he's, like you just said, maybe the first or second best player on their defense. And he's getting paid far less than pretty much on any new signing that the Chiefs would bring on. I would want my money too. And what I've been hearing from Chiefs fans is people think that just because they make millions of dollars that they should sacrifice money and get paid less than what they're worth. Just because they make $1 million does not mean they should sacrifice their worth. If you were at your job, Chris Jones has been here for 4 years, going on his 5th. If you were working at your job for 4 years, know that you're due for a pay raise, but they give it to some new employee out of town before you would be probably upset too.
We got a box.
Exactly. So I understand that he makes millions of dollars, but it's about with your worth. It's not even necessarily about the money. And I think to any sane person, that would come off as very disrespectful. When I do a lot of similar things to somebody who's maybe I'm one of the best at this company, I see somebody, a rival, or Aaron Donald's not a rival, but somebody else who does something very similar. I'm maybe not as good as him, but right there, and it's my time to be paid. And now somehow everybody else is getting paid. Travis Kelce got his money. He's been here just as long as Travis Kelce. Tyreek Hill got his money. He's been here just as long as Tyreek Hill. Frank Clark's been here 1 season. He got $62 million guaranteed. He's never made more than $2 million in any one season. So I am always 100% on the players. How it's going to work for a D tackle to go the left bell route, that's a different story. I don't know how that's going to work out for him sitting out a whole year. I mean, if you ask Le'Veon Bell, he'll say it worked out for him great. If you ask other people, it failed miserably. So take that what you will, but
I think defensive-wise, it might actually work. Because you're looking at a D tackle who, yes, Lev Bell got the ball a lot, but sitting out a season as a running back, especially on the offense, that throws you completely out of rhythm. And not only did he sit out a season, he went to a whole nother team. So he had to learn a playbook. He had to play with guys he'd never played with before. Chris Jones, on the other hand, I mean, you got one objective when the ball gets snapped, get to the ball. Quick public service announcement. Shout out Lauren, my boss. I don't know if you listen to this, but it's time for my pay raise, and I got paid.
Yeah, I think everything that we've said was a great summary of why Chris Jones won't be with the Chiefs. Because look at the Aaron Donald situation. The Rams were in something real similar. They went to the Super Bowl. Then what happened? They paid Jared Goff all that money because Jared Goff was their guy for the future. They paid Aaron Donald all that money and extended him. Now you got to trade away guys like Todd Gurley, those skill position guys. What the Chiefs said was, we value the skill position guys over our defensive tackle. They got them paid to help Pat Mahomes. Jared Goff's out there in LA playing with nothing. He's the third best team in his division now. Maybe fourth, depending on what the Cardinals do. They went from Super Bowl to nearly cellar dwellers that quick because of the position they decided to pay. The Chiefs paid, in my opinion, the right guys. And I know Chris Jones probably feels slighted by that. So Chris Jones, he can go somewhere. He can go make his money. Whoever's going to offer him that money, be it the Jets, like Monte keeps saying, or some team like that, he can get his money. It won't be with the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think we all agree. He will not be in Kansas City after going into the 2021 season. It's unfortunate Chris Jones definitely been one of the most exciting players here in Kansas City. I know for a fact the Chiefs aren't budging. Like, Mahomes is the priority. They're not budging, so they're not going to pay him $20 million a season. And not Frank Clark, but Chris Jones is not going to fold. He's made that abundantly clear. So I see the Chiefs playing without Chris Jones this upcoming season, and it's going to be interesting to see where he goes. I mean, who knows how the NFL season is going to go, given the quarantine times and everything like that. But yeah, definitely major blow, I think, for both sides. I think Chris Jones wants to be here. The Chiefs want him here, but it just, contract-wise, just can't happen. And speaking of things that can't happen, so each week we're going to display a list made up, a top 10 list at each position in the NFL made up of CBS Sports' own Pete Prisco. This week we're going to do cornerbacks, as he, a couple weeks ago, released his top 10 teams, as you can see right in front of you now, and created quite a bit of controversy over Twitter. Some of the names on here I'm okay with. The order is a big problem, and there's just some names, I'm sorry, that do not belong on here whatsoever. I don't know. I don't really know what he was thinking. But we'll unveil. We all decided to do our own top 10, and so I'll unveil Connor's first. And there's what Connor decided to go with. Unfortunately, he's not here to defend some of his answers because, boy, oh boy,
we need answers.
boy, do we ever. That's an interesting list there. I'll go ahead and unveil mine next. This is what I decided to go with. Then next we're going to go with Monte's list for his top 10. And then we're going on to Toby's list. And so now that all of our lists have been unveiled for our top 10 corners, what's your guys' initial reactions?
So, Creed, he rattled off his list in our group text message just real quick. I think it was 5 minutes after we said, hey, what's your top 10 cornerbacks? He actually sent us an all-time list. We said, no, Creed, this is for 2020. Keep it 2020. He sent that real quick. I'm not sure how much thought went into it. When I saw it, it was like watching the ugly girl post a pic on Instagram and say no caption. You know, like, nah, this needs to be explained.
We need answers. We need a caption with this.
Start talking right now. What the hell happened? The first big point on Connor's list that jumped out to me was Byron Jones at 6, which wasn't on any of our list. Byron Jones on Pete Prisco's list too, along with his new partner in crime, Xavier Howard. We checked the stats. We actually put in the research for this and found Byron Jones to have as many interceptions last season as I had. I didn't even go to a game as a fan. Had as many interceptions. 6 pass deflections on the season. The Cowboys' defense wasn't bad, and Byron Jones is certainly a capable cornerback. People only completed 53% of passes against him. But for a guy to make such little plays, big plays in the secondary, I don't see how people would rate him top 10, especially above some of the names we see on here. Especially Pete Prisco's list. That's just... we might have to go back to that one. I know I want to talk about Connor's, but Pete Prisco's list might be worse because he gets paid to do this. We're doing this out of the fun and goodness of our hearts. He got paid to put together that crap fest. But Byron Jones was the big one for me on this list. The other names on there, they're all very, everybody on this list is a good cornerback. You don't get ranked in the top 10 by not being a good cornerback. But Byron Jones, really the name that stuck out to me.
So I think Connor was playing Madden when he made this cornerback list. Because there's no way you don't have Richard Sherman or Patrick Peterson on this list. And another key addition that even I don't have on my list, but he's number 11. We'll talk about that when we get there.
Boy.
No Jalen Ramsey either. Connor was playing Madden. He was in our franchise just making trades away because this list is criminal.
Even on Madden, they rank Richard Sherman one of the best corners in the game. How Richard Sherman that was the biggest takeaway from Connor's list for me. It was the names who weren't on here. No Jalen Ramsey, which we'll get into, but I think that's a crime. No Richard Sherman. I think it's a crime to rate Richard Sherman outside the top 5. And at least put him on the list. And then no Patrick Peterson either. That's bad. I'm sorry. I like Chris Harris is a very good player. Kyle Fuller is very nice, but I'm sorry. They just did not make the cut for me.
Yeah, and I feel like Creed, who put Chris Harris on his list, didn't show the same sort of respect to the elder cornersmen, the Shermans and Petersons of the world. Because when Chris Harris was good, that's when life was best for me, too. I was closer to God than I had ever been. I was flush with cash. But I'm over sophomore year of high school, all right? This is going into 2020. Chris Harris, good name, not on my list.
No, he's not. Not even close. Anything you guys have to say about my list at all?
We both had Marlon Humphrey much higher. Me and Monte did. He seems to be the steady presence in the Ravens secondary, which one could argue is the top secondary in the NFL. I had him rated much higher. Outside of that, it's a pretty solid list. Obviously, we're going to differ as we get towards the lower stages of the list, the 7s through 10s. We also had Tre'Davious White much higher, Monte and I.
Yeah, with our list, you'll see a common theme of names. I'd say there's, a group of 12 names that basically rotate in and out of our top 10, give or take a few on some lists and not on others. The one that was tough for me was leaving Jalen Ramsey off. In Jacksonville, just a dog. Not hearing too much about him in LA. I think it's partially got to do with that system. Their offense was god-awful last year, so he played a ton of snaps, and playing a ton of snaps, especially on defense, you're bound to get burnt sooner or later, so that's why it took a little bit of a fall for me on my list.
One thing, too, because on my list, I'm the only one who had Marcus Peters on my list, and I had Marcus Peters at 4, because Marcus Peters is a really good cornerback. He makes a ton of plays, more impact plays than almost any cornerback in the league. And while he does take chances, I think a lot of people shy away from putting a guy like Peters, not obviously not Pete Prisco, put him at 2, but a lot of people shy away from putting guys like Peters or Ramsey too high on their list because they're worried more about them in the locker room or off the field than they are their actual performance on the field. So, for Connor, who in fact in the text message said Chris Harris and Jalen Ramsey tied for 10, he went Harris over Ramsey, and I think most of that has to do with Jalen Ramsey being sort of a guy you look at and you say that's a bad teammate, but he's a worse teammate than he is a cornerback, and that's why he's on all of our lists, not why he was close to making Monte's list, on me and Gannon's list, and wasn't on Connor's.
Yeah, for me, it's not a reputation thing for Marcus Peters. I just think that he's not as consistent as these guys because he takes bigger chances. And we spoke a little bit about this off air. But if you look at the safeties that Marcus Peters has gotten to play with in his first 3, I think this will be his 4th year in the league, is unbelievable. He came in with Eric Berry, went to the Rams, had Eric Weddle, and then he went to the Ravens and has Earl Thomas. So when you have these are all time great safeties, I'd say. Overall, Eric Weddle's a little bit, I say, lower than those guys, but he's still a very capable guy and a veteran in this league for many years. When you have somebody like that over you, you can take chances. And I think that Marcus Peters has benefited from that, and that's all credit to him. Very good with his instincts, and comes up. He's just a ball hawk. He's all over the place. But at the same time, if you really watch the Ravens, I think you can see that there are plays where the defense is all confused, and it's for some reason it tends to be on Marcus Peters' side when there's a coverage bust, or when there's like, how did that guy get open for that first down on a crucial 3rd down? Just from what I've watched, it always kind of seems like it's at Marcus Peters' expense. And I think it's because he's trying to bait the quarterback into something, kind of gets out of his zone or plays off on the receiver or something, and it costs him. But in that same breath, it also gains him very many great defensive plays. I just think that he just too many chances for my liking, but I definitely understand him being on the list. But ahead of these guys, I don't know. I like my list, and I like how fundamentally sound they are with even a teammate of his, Marlon Humphrey, and just how consistent those players are time in and time out.
Well, this is kind of a good talking point too about how people construct their list, because Pete Prisco's list went interception leader in the NFL, followed by the interception touchdown return leader in the NFL, followed by Joe Hayden, who had 5 interceptions last year. So Prisco's list seems to be more about guys who make the big play on defense, and it's kind of a, how do you play corner? Are you more of a big play impact type person, or are you just the consistent stopper? They're not moving the ball. And so for me, when I looked at the Ravens defensive backfield with Earl Thomas, who's always been consistent, extremely consistent as a safety, less consistent in off-field decisions, and then a guy like Marlon Humphrey, he had 3 picks last year, but he only allowed a 68.4 passer rating when they targeted him. Marcus Peters can afford to take chances. I think the fact that he does, and he does it so well, with so much consistency throughout his career, really makes him, in my mind, a scary cornerback to go up against if you're an opposing team, because that's a game changer. There's not a whole lot of guys that can change the game from the defensive spot that quickly. Marcus Peters is one of those guys. That's why I have him at 4. You could move him up and down this list. He could easily be behind Richard Sherman, easily be behind Marshawn Lattimore, but I like the interceptions. I like the fact that he turns them into points. So that's why he falls at 4 for me.
Yeah, no, I like that we've kind of decided to do this list, and next week we're going to be on to wide receivers, so look out for that, as we can't wait to. You guys will not like, if you're a sane NFL fan, you will not like Pete Prisco's list, but it is, maybe you might like if you're a Chiefs fan.
If you're a Chiefs fan, you'll love it.
You'll love it, but it's boy. I'll just say that, but we'll we'll get into that next week. As we enter the final minutes of our show, of episode 3, what are you guys' final thoughts?
So I want to start my final thoughts. This is going to be a trend for me because I feel like you hear me say a lot, and sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's, extremely eloquently put, like this Marcus Peters discussion I just had. But not a lot of you guys get to hear about me and what I get to do, like during times when I'm not on air. So I watched Hamilton on Friday with my mom upstairs. That's how I spent the day before the 4th of July. And it slaps, quite frankly. It's incredible. Watched it. I've watched a few musicals. I'm not like that big into them, Enjoy a good musical every now and then. And this one, like, so different. Thomas Jefferson brought the swag with him. James Madison, he was a different guy at the start of the play. He became James Madison later in the play. Phenomenal. James Madison, him and Thomas Jefferson, 2 best people in the show. When they came in, it really, it became a vibe at that point. It was much less a play, it was a vibe. I love Hamilton. It's on Disney+. Go watch it. The casting was amazing. They didn't do it based on how people looked, just based on who they thought fit the part. So, like, Leslie Odom, who got to sing with the sexy green M&M lady on that commercial. He was Aaron Burr in the play. He was phenomenal. Rave reviews for Hamilton. That's what I was doing this week. And I'll let you guys know next week if I see a banger musical again. If I run into some cool animal outside my house, I'll let you guys know. So, that's my final thought.
Cool animal.
All right, well, I think you just sold me on watching Hamilton.
No doubt.
Because, yeah. My final thought, I'm gonna stick with what Toby just did. So, sitting in bed on Friday, just hanging out, scrolling Facebook. And I come across a very interesting post from the man Gannon himself. He had to pick 3 cereals out of Honey Nut Cheerios, Golden Grahams, Fruit Loops, Apple Jacks, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Lucky Charms, Cocoa Puffs, which, Sean, if you listen to this, that's a terrible decision.
Horrible.
Fruity Pebbles, and Frosted Flakes. And my final thought is Gannon's taste for Apple Jacks is just... I don't know if we can let him lead the podcast no more. Because Apple Jacks was his first pick. And he picked them over Cinnamon Toast Crunch and Lucky Charms. He couldn't even go with a classic with Frosted Flakes.
Okay, first of all, I did choose Frosted Flakes. I chose 4, 5, and 9. And I only chose those because it went in numerical order, okay?
Nah.
So that's 1. Number 2, I will not sit here and be disrespected like this, okay? I don't care what y'all talking about. I love me some cinnamon, all right? Applejack slaps. And you know what's great? It's just like Cinnamon Toast Crunch. After you're done eating it, it gives just like a nice flavor to that milk. So after you finish the bowl off, it's got that nice cinnamon toast. It's perfect. That's why they go hand in hand. Applejack and Cinnamon Toast Crunch go hand in hand. And I will stand by this. I have been flamed by multiple people actually by this, and I'm sick of it. What is wrong with Applejack? It wouldn't be on the list if it wasn't a viable option.
Bro, Golden Grams is on the list. You can make the list. Like Byron Jones made Connor's list. So who makes the list is not what matters. It's what you choose. Apple Jacks. All I want to say, they're called Apple Jacks. It's more of a cinnamon taste. So even the name is a lie. It's leading you on. Gannon's shown time and again he likes to be led on. Okay? And Apple Jacks is the cereal for you. All right? And it leaving the taste in the milk. Cinnamon Toast Crunch does a great job of that. Frosted Flakes, not so great of a job. But Apple Jacks, apple milk. Think about it. At least Cocoa Puffs makes it chocolate milk. There's no such thing as apple milk. I'm not hearing it. You want good tasting milk after cereal? Get Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Apple Jacks is a lie. It's a lie in and of itself. They should call it Cinnamon Jacks. And it should compete with Cinnamon Toast Crunch as arch rivals.
And those would be my two favorite.
Oh, wow. That's like liking Cocoa Puffs and Count Chocula. You have to pick one. You're either hanging out with that bird on there, or you're hanging out with the Count.
Okay. Let me real quick too. I also did say Fruity Pebbles would be my fourth choice. So if I had to remove one, which, sheesh, it was on my head about Apple Jacks. Fruity Pebbles would have been my fourth one. So get off my head about this.
I can respect that.
So, goodness.
So we've got to think about what Connor would be thinking. You know, a final thought to this episode for Connor. He didn't get to defend himself. He talked about the way Reggie Miller looked. You know, I think Creed's final thought would probably be, how did Dennis Rodman not make the ugliest players list, and Reggie Miller did? If I was Creed, I would start by talking about Dennis Rodman's hair and why he didn't like how he dyed it. Then I would talk about him wearing that wedding dress through the city. You know, you're supposed to look good in a wedding dress. He did not, in my opinion. And Connor's, he might have. You know, but Dennis Rodman would be the guy for me if I was Creed and I'm trying to defend Reggie, like everybody from Indiana does. I'd say, look, he does not look like a black vampire. Dennis Rodman is like Dennis Rodman looks like he fell onto a sidewalk where kids was like drawing out hopscotch. It got up in his hair. It got tatted all along him. I would use him as the guy to try to deflect from Reggie Miller's ugliness if I was Connor. That would probably be my final thought. I know he's probably been thinking about it if he's listening still. He's been thinking about that this whole podcast. He's like, wow, who is uglier than Reggie Miller? And I've got to say, I think Dennis Rodman would be an option.
Well, for my final thought, so I work at a car rental place, and business has been booming. We are busy all the time. And I just want to know, where are y'all going? Where are you going? You can't do much. Like, the places that are fun to go to, you can't go to. Or if you do, I feel like there's not too much stuff to do. My job has even told me that to not leave, otherwise I'll have to quarantine when I come back. And so I'll be out of a paycheck for a couple weeks. So I'm trying to figure out what jobs are allowing y'all to leave and where are y'all going when you do leave. It really blows my mind. And I know people want to take a trip, but y'all are part of the reason it's making it so hard to bring sports back. We have got to continue to quarantine to bring these cases down so we can get sports back. Because we are just a few days away from the MLS coming back, then a little less than a week from UFC, and before we know it, NBA, MLB, and NHL will all be back. So overall, my final thought is just everybody stay safe, be smart, and have fun, but have fun within reason, people.
And with that final thought, we would like to hear from you all. So, you guys in the comments, let us know what your cereal options would be. Only 3. Don't give us 4. Don't tell us what didn't make the cut. We don't even need an explanation. Well, if you pick Fruity Pebbles or Golden Grahams or Cocoa Puffs, we need an explanation with that. And Apple Jacks too.
Oh, come on.
But anything else, just let us know. You ain't gotta rank them. Just put your favorite cereals down there.
Apple Jacks is getting its winner mine.
Okay. Well, in addition to that, put you guys' favorite cereal and let us know. We decided to add some enhancements to this one, so let me know if you like the videos or not. We wanted to kind of give you a little bit something to watch while also listening to us. So continue to reach out. We love you guys' feedback. Thank you for ones who have reached out, and we look forward to seeing you guys on our next episode. You guys have a great one. All right.